We are live. This is Coach Arnie. Oh, I see my tripod in the back there. I've been making videos today, the last couple of days for my new endeavor, but I'll explain that here in a little bit. But this is the Health, Love, and Life show. This is WGSN Going Solo Network. Thank you, CC Chats, for doing all this for everybody. And I'm Arnie Fonseca, Coach Arnie. And there's my phone number. There's my email. And get a hold of me. Call me. Text me. Let's talk. If you got an issue, if you've got a question, send me an email. Send me a text. And I promise you I'll get back to you. But tonight we're going to talk about human needs. And I was doing some reading the other day. And I've done some deep study on human needs from a couple different perspectives. And I'm going to share all of those with you. And then I'm going to kind of share with what I was reading the other day that kind of sparked me to say, let's talk about this, especially at this time of year, which is generally high in depression anyways. And then with the COVID shutdown, uncertainty, anger, angst, you name it, the emotion, it doesn't matter. It's worse. So let's talk about it. What do we need to in order for us to be human beings at a higher level? And so that's what I want to talk about tonight for a few minutes here. And hopefully it generates some curiosity in yourselves to do a little self-study. There's a lot of information out there that you can look into this. And it's in reality, when we go through it here, you're going to see it's pretty basic. But it brings in a lot of different things. It brings in fear. It brings in desires and emotions and all the things that we go through in life. And like I said a minute ago or so, this time of year it seems to do a lot of that anyway. So sometimes until we do that self-study, found some really cool podcasts. I love looking in different areas that I teach. One is relationships, obviously one is health, and one is business. And so, and I'm kind of going through all that right now. And so I ran into a really neat, through a business thing, I ran into a really neat podcast. I don't want to share it right now though, but it's a little risque, but on relationships, and it just is really good stuff. But it got me thinking as well on how important these things are, and again, these needs that we all have as human beings, and that if we're not looking at them, if we're not addressing them pretty much on a regular basis, on a daily basis, we're going to make mistakes. And I don't care how old you are. Even when I do a lot of work in some of my men's groups, young men especially are very confused people. I feel bad for young ladies. No wonder young ladies are after older men, because young men are a mess. I mean, older guys still haven't figured this thing out, but young men are a mess. And I feel really bad, but I look around at our society and seeing what we've created, and this is what we're getting. So, but there's a lot of confusion, a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of crazy stuff going on here, and physically as well. So that's a 1-2 punch for disaster, and that's kind of what we're getting in our society today. But that's another topic, another show. But today we want to talk about human needs, and I want to start off with a pretty basic one that probably a lot of people use, is Maslow. Many years ago came up with a hierarchy. You start at a certain level and you move your way up as far as our basic needs for human beings. And it all starts kind of primal, our physiological needs. And it really comes down to survival, whether it be food, shelter, sex, to reproduce, clothing, shelter, water, air. I mean, you want to get prime, you want to get basic, put a pillow over somebody's face and you watch them fight. I've seen this done, and I've worked with people in mental illness that want to die, and you don't try this at home, please, but you put a pillow over their face and they fight like hell. and you just turn around and say, I thought you wanted to die. Because that need for air is a basic need. And I learned a lot of this working with people that had traumatic injuries, because a lot of times when the brain is injured, it overrides thinking, the process of deduction, and it goes right to our primal needs. It's like a reflex. And survival is at the top. It's at the bottom tonight because it's primal. It's a base. But for people that have a traumatic injury, many times it's where they go first, because they don't think about it. They just react. It's kind of when something bad happens to you and you react, you say something, you go, oh, I wish I wouldn't have said that. I wish I wouldn't have done that. Because we don't think to go, oh, I better come up with the exact perfect thing to say or do. No, sometimes we just react. And if you're trained to do that, it's a different story. But most of us are not trained to do that. That's what first responders, and they're trained to react in a certain way. But it comes through repetition. Again, most of us don't have that training or the ability, so we don't do that. So so the physiological need is first, and then if that's kind of met at an okay level, then we can get to that next level, which is safety, security. It's, do I have a job that I can pay my rent, pay my house payment, take care of my family? Do I have some kind of maybe retirement? Do I have insurance? These basic needs of safety? Am I going to be okay? Do I have money to put gas in my car? Do I have, obviously, the physiological, am I getting food? But the safety need of, do I have the ability to purchase food or grow food, or locate it? I mean, if you don't have the ability to locate, to move, to walk, that affects that need. It's not being met. So the second level there of safety is super important. It's still pretty primal, but it explains a lot of things that you see in society, and especially today. If things for people and individuals not being met on these first two levels, they will act out. They will act out in a way that can be looked at almost as primitive, by stealing. And some cities in our country have even outlawed arresting. This is bizarre. Arresting people for stealing, if they're stealing for their basic needs. Now, in a civilized society, in an organized society, it makes no sense at all, because it's promoting chaos. And that's not what civil societies do. But that's why over the years we've developed safety nets. I've worked in food kitchens for years. Free food. You don't need to steal it. And I used to make comments. We would meet after or before, and I would say, God, it's amazing how much food that you can eat here. But here's the problem. You got to show up. It's free. You got to show up, though, to get your food. And some people can't do that. Or some people can't meet the basic rules of, you can't be strung out on drugs. But then if you are, you can go to other places where they'll help you manage that. But again, that's another decision. And that's part of being a human being, is that you have free will. Because a lot of, if you've ever watched movies or done some reading on men, especially men in jail, criminals that were released, and they'd been there for quite a number of years, they, within a short amount of time, they wanted to go back, because they didn't like how it felt to have to make decisions. Yeah, they would rather have had somebody make the decision for them when they were going to eat, when they could go to bed, when they could exercise, when they could because they knew everything else was taken care of for them. Get it? First two needs: physiological, air, water, food, shelter. All that was taken care of. Level 2, safety. They had plenty. They didn't have to worry about money. They were given that. They would be taken care of for the rest of their life without ever having to worry about it. See how this works? But they couldn't go any higher than that. But then again, maybe they could. Maybe if they study, people get degrees in prison, do all kinds of things, start churches, and versus out in the real world, sometimes that's hard to do. So it's something to think about, isn't it? So that's level 2 with Maslow. Level 3 is the social component. Now we're getting to a level that most of us start to live our lives at, the social level. And that's, to me, and we'll talk about that here in a minute when we talk about one of my mentors, and that's love, appreciation, friendship, belonging, a sense of belonging. Those are huge. That's where most of us start our day at. Because one of the basic fears is, am I loved? Am I loved? Am I appreciated? Especially for men. Men in relationships, that's one of the main things they're looking for, appreciation. Women do too, but men do at a deeper level. For many of us, that friendships, I did a thing on TV many years ago for older people. And one of the 2 or 3 main reasons for longevity is friendships, connections with people. Huge. Look at some of I'm not a big believer in the blue zone concept, but there are areas of the world where they have very older populations, Sardinia, Italy, Okinawa, and some of these other places around the world. And the one thing that I have been studying almost 35 years now is connections. People have connections. It's big. Especially here in the United States, because we don't have all the families living in one unit anymore. They spread out, they leave. And so you don't have Starbucks tried the concept of the neighborhood cafe, which is where he got the idea from Europe, or a place that people can congregate and just socialize and support each other. It's a big need that's being met. Yeah, because it covers all the bases, the love aspect. And I'm not talking about intimate love. That's a different level of love. To me, it's a more important level of love, but it's a scary place for people to go. It's scary to go to a deeper, intimate level of love. It's a lot easier to stay at a level of connection. And we'll talk about that as well here as we go. And appreciation. When you do something for the group, you're appreciated for it. You're not doing it for appreciation, but you're doing it because of love. Get it? You're doing it because you want to belong, but it's nice to be appreciated. Because if you keep doing it, there's never any appreciation. There might be a time you want to leave the group. That's the way it works. And that's why sense of belonging is so powerful. It's one of my core concepts of my hopeful principle. Is belonging, being a part of something. And we human beings need that, which is one of the biggest problems that COVID and some of the research that I'm doing, it's showing that, at the end of the day, we're going to have more deaths and problems from loneliness and other things than we are ever from the virus. Yeah. Huge, because it's deep, and it affects not just one, but it's geometric how it affects the family. If you've ever been in a family of an addict, I can tell you that right now, that whether you're an addict or not, if you have an addict in your family, it affects you. So, and it goes deep, not just the immediate family, but, cousins. It goes deep. So that's why this thing on a mental health level is geometric compared to just one person getting sick. So social is the third level of where we all start at. It's kind of where our basic level is, love and connection. Level 4 with Maslow is esteem, significance, confidence, our status. Again, that these are important things that that we all are looking for. These are needs that we want to be met. The need to believe in ourselves. For men, when I work with a lot of men, especially young men, do I have what it takes? I'm putting together a big trip right now in the Grand Canyon. And one of the things that we use is kind of a marketing line is, you got what it takes. See, a lot of men never heard that from their dad. I never did. And because at some point as men, we need to hear it from other men that you've got what it takes. And so, which is why a lot of men will go off and do stupid things, very risky things to get attention from other people. So that people go, wow, that guy is crazy. I could never do that. But a lot of it comes from the fact that he never heard from another man, a strong man, that he had what it takes. And we need to hear it from women as well. And women need to feel that too. They need to feel confident that they've got what it takes as well to be a great mom, to be a great wife, and all these things as well. They need to be appreciated as well. If they're not, obviously these create major problems. So self-esteem, esteem of self is powerful. Significance, confidence, our status in our group, in our community. These are big things that meet needs that are important. And if they're not met, then we dangerously go to other sources to have them met. Happens all the time, doesn't it? If you haven't lived through it, you probably will. And it's not pleasant. If you're the one doing it, at some point, you'll probably have regrets. Unless you're a narcissist, and then you're probably not listening to this show anyways. So, but you'll probably, because all of us are flawed, all of us make mistakes, and it's all about forgiving ourselves and making changes, or it leads to other problems. All right, we're going to take before we get to number 5. We're going to take a minute, not a minute. We're going to take a couple seconds here and just give it a little break here, and we'll be right back. All right, there we go. That was very cool. So here we go. So up to this point, we've talked about the Maslow. We've talked about the base, which is the basic physiological needs. And then we, once those are met at a decent level, we can move up to our safety needs. Do we have enough to survive? Do we have protection, some safety, security? And then once we're there, then we have a kind of a level that I like to say we're kind of our starting place of, being able to interact with other people and belong and love and all the things that we all truly aspire to have in our lives. And it's really a basic need. It really is. It's why it's the number one love of our fear of not being loved, along with not being good enough, which really comes into number 4, our self-esteem, our confidence, and most people really struggle in these areas, especially men. They don't feel confident and able to because they don't think they have what it takes to whatever it might be, to be a great dad, a great friend, a great lover. They haven't been told that, and they haven't quite figured it out. It's hard. It's hard I'm raising my hand as a young man. It wasn't easy, and unless you had a great mentor. I had some great friends and coaches. I didn't learn it from my dad, and so that's why there's a lot of struggle with men today. And then we talked about self-esteem, confidence, all that stuff. So the last level with Maslow is self-actualization, which is really a fancy dancy way of saying personal development. We've all heard that, and sometimes when I bring that up to people, because I really got into personal development in the early 90s when I started my first business. Really, well, it wasn't my first business, but my first serious business. And when I mention that to people, I go, I don't want to do that. I don't want to read. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And most people just don't want to do it. They don't want to go to conferences. They don't want to read. They don't want to listen to podcasts. They don't want to listen to, unless they have a real, I wrote something down. Hang on for 1 second. I wrote this down. This is good. So hang on for 1 second. I wrote down. Yeah. Deeper the pain, deeper the purse. So if your pain is deep enough, then you'll figure out a way to get the book, get the conference, or whatever you're going to have to do. It's kind of true, right? It's kind of true. It's sad, but true. And so, but until we get to that level where we're willing to work on ourselves, guys and ladies, not much is going to happen. You're probably going to still make mistakes, the same mistakes. And that's when it's not good. Mistakes are fine. I'm all about mistakes. I make mistakes every day. I'm just getting a lot better at calling people, texting people, asking for help, because it's just not worth repeating the same stuff over and over again. Now, I get struggle. Struggle makes you stronger. But I don't get struggling over the same thing over and over again. I want to learn. I want to figure it out. I want to grow. That's why I love listening to podcasts. I love listening to books, reading books, conferences. If I have time, I love it. I look on my podcast list and see what's new and what I want to learn, and I'll just bounce around. Whether it's I'm listening to one right now about the tribe, the Hudson tribe in Africa, and I'm just learning about some really neat things about human behavior, but that's me. I may never use. Well, I will use it because it's stuff that I talk about all the time. So personal growth, self-actualization about yourself. Where are you going? Where have you been? What have you learned? How can you contribute to other people? Why are you here? Why are you here? And that's kind of what level 5 means. Why are you here? What's your purpose here on this planet? You know, some people are just here to exist. Some people are here to contribute. And we get to choose, right? We get to choose. The guy that didn't want to, he went back into prison, didn't he? But he might have contributed in there. He might have helped another brother out and made a contribution. I don't know. I have no idea, but I do know that we get to choose out here in the real world. And it's hard. It's hard. So those are Maslow. Now I want to get into a mentor of mine, and a big name that we've all heard of, but I've studied enough of stuff, gone to enough of his events. And that's Tony Robbins. And he came up with what he called the 6 human needs many, many years ago. And you're going to hear a similarity. I'm not going to go into as deep, but there's a definite similarity when Tony came up with listen, all of us coaches, speakers, trainers, consultants, we all go to certain sources. Not a lot of us have an original thought. So somebody thinks I had a guy I worked with many years ago. As a trainer, smart guy, but I asked him who he learned from, and he goes, "Oh no, it's all my original thought." And you know, he was confident. I didn't argue with him, but I saw what he was doing, and some of the stuff was original. But look, we all learn from someone, and there's nothing wrong with learning from somebody and making it your own. Okay, I do it all the time because I know everybody else does it, and but like, you know, I don't have Arnie's 6 human needs, but I have Tony Robbins' 6 human needs, and I've studied them, used them, taught them, and that's why I want to go over them. So the first one, he calls his first 4 fundamental. These are just needs, kind of like we just talked about with Maslow, okay, to a point. Probably the first 3, meaning that we have a need in our life for certainty, for things to be organized, for things to be like the sun needs to come up, right? We need to breathe. We need to have air. We need to have food. That's all these things. We need to have shelter. Okay? We need a certain level of health to feel certainty about life. And then his second need is a variety. It's kind of a paradox between the first and second, because with too much certainty in your life, you're bored. The guy in prison is probably bored, unless he picks up to get a degree or something else, but he's probably bored because he doesn't have to worry about anything. That's why, you know, when I was studying, do a lot of work on mental health, one of the countries with the highest suicide rates, and you hear different things, but I watched a documentary on it, was the Netherlands, Holland, because they had cradle to grave care. And some people thought that was really cool, except when they started doing some deep study into the younger people. There's no drive, there's no determination, because there's no fear. They don't have to worry about a job. They don't have to worry about getting up and grinding and making it work, making their life. Their life is given to them. So when you are given everything, there's not as much respect for it. And so, if you're having a bad day, why not? Just end it. And that's what people do. So, so we need a certain amount of certainty, but we know if we have too much, it's boring. If we have a lot of uncertainty, which creates anxiety and craziness in our lives, because we have no control. When we're out of control, right, then that's not good either. You know, that's overload. We're overwhelmed with life, you know, anxiety, and it's just horrific, isn't it? We've been there. That's when you can't control anything. So too much certainty means you are out of control. You're overwhelmed. Too much certainty, you're bored. Okay? But we need a balance. It's like a movie. If you know the end of a movie, there's a good chance you may not spend, $15 to go see it. You wait till it comes on Redbox for $1.50 to go watch it, because you already saw it. You know the ending, right? Unless it's a great movie and you loved it, then you'll go back and pay for it. But not all the movies. You don't go do that with all the movies. So we need that, how's this going to end thing. We need a little bit of uncertainty, don't we? I do. I know I do. I like to try to figure it out. That's why I drive my wife crazy sometimes, because I'm talking during it. If it's a suspenseful movie, I'm trying to figure how's this thing going to end. Sometimes it's predictable. Sometimes it's not. But I'll watch movies that I really, really enjoy over and over and over again, because just like I'll listen to books or read books that I enjoy over and over again, because I learn something, or I learn something new every time. So you have to have that balance. The third one is of the fundamental needs is significance. We have to be appreciated. Okay. We have to, for a lot of men, it's, I'm a doctor, lawyer, whatever it might be. For women, it's generally across the board, I'm a mom. That's how they see themselves. That's how they get their significance. I'm a mom. I'm a grandma. Some may think that's a little weird, but that's just the way we're made. That's when people say men and women aren't different. They are. They are different. And so significance is a big one. Significance is a big one, as is love. Their fourth human need, love or connection, because a lot of people are afraid of love. They're afraid of getting in deep. They're afraid of getting too intimate with somebody because they're going to get hurt, right? It's a whole nother podcast or show. But we need that human connection. And so what they say is, a lot of times if you have three of these things met in a situation, it's an addiction. Whether it be drugs, smoking, sex, food. If any of these three needs are met, of these four, you have an addiction. Think about it. If it makes you feel good, if it makes you feel safe, food. If it makes you feel important, I don't know. If it makes you feel connection, food. It's an addiction. It's an addiction. So 3 out of those 4 are met in a relationship, in a job, with a drug, drinking. A lot of times drinking does. Drinking gives you a place to hang out, makes you feel good, all these things. Crazy, huh? So those are your first 4, which are the fundamental needs. Now, the last 2 that Tony comes up with are what he call your essential. These are why you're here. This is why you're on planet Earth. Okay. And the first one is, we talked about it with Maslow, is growth. If you're not growing, you're dying. That's an old one, right? If you're not growing, you're dying. It's true. And then the 6th one is contribution. Okay. If you're not giving back, if you're not being a part of your group, your family, your community, again, why are you here? But if you're growing, see how this works? If you're growing, there's a good chance you're going to be contributing, because you're going to be able to give away that overflow that you're getting into your own life from learning. That's why it's so important to keep learning. Learn from other people, learn from books, learn from conferences, because the more we learn, the more we can give away. The more we learn, the more we can give away. So those are Tony Robbins' 6 human needs. He does a whole course on that. It's amazing. So the fundamental needs are certainty, uncertainty, significance, love or connection, however you want to look at it. And if 3 or 4 out of those 4 are met in anything that you do in life, it becomes a addiction. Now, I'm not saying it's bad. Heck, if all 4 of those are met or 3 of those in your relationship, and it's a loving relationship, that's a great relationship. If you get safety that your partner loves you, if you get some excitement that, it's not boring, if your partner makes you feel good and appreciated and they make you feel loved, woo, who doesn't want that, right? Who doesn't want that? I'm addicted to that, right? Who wouldn't be? Of course, it's important. And then if you're growing on top of that, you're becoming better human being, all these good things, and you're able to contribute beyond yourself. You're taken care of. Those first 4 things are taking care of this right here. Now you're able to give beyond yourself to others in your community. Get it? That becomes your why. That becomes why you're here on this planet. All right. So now something I picked up the other day when I was reading through, I'm studying Romans right now in the Bible. And Paul was talking about what he considered his 3 human needs, 3 most important human needs. And as I was reading through it, I reached out and got some notes on the other things that we were just talking about. And I thought, wait, where's the crossover? Where's the learning here? And with Paul, his was more about it's pretty basic, but it crossed over. The first one he talked about was to believe. So he got right to it. To believe, to have faith in something. Not here. Faith here in something that you can't see or touch. So you can see and touch yourself. Okay, I'm here. I'm a man. I'm a woman. But what do you believe in beyond yourself? I mean, obviously you have to believe in yourself to be able to go beyond yourself. So Paul wanted you to, he knew that we all needed something bigger than us. We did. And that's kind of where Tony was going with his essential needs, of growth and contribution. He got right to it. He got to level 6. Where are we going with this? What do we believe in that's bigger than us? Most people never get there. They say they do, but they never get there. And it's super important that we get there, because that gets you to the ultimate level as a human being. Okay? When you can see beyond and go beyond yourself. Okay? It kind of is like a child is all about themselves, right? That little baby. I have a new little grandson. Everything in his world is about himself. His need to eat, stay warm, stay safe. Everything's about himself. And at some point in his life, when his needs are met, he's going to be able to believe in something much bigger. That's the goal. At least I'm going to help him to understand that that's the goal. And he should feel that too as a human being. So that's number 1. Number 2 is to belong. Community, family. We all have this need. That's why in Maslow we talked about it. In Tony Robbins we talked about it. That was love and connection with Robbins, and that's the social part with Maslow. Level 3, right? But we need to belong to something. I always tell people you're always going to be loved if you love yourself, because God loves you, whoever you believe in. And if whoever you believe in doesn't love you, then maybe you're not believing in the right thing. That's not for me to judge. That's for you to figure out. But if you don't love yourself, then you're going to always struggle. And if you don't love yourself, then it's going to be hard to become part of a group that's going to love you, because it's awful hard to give that love to the group and expect it back, versus if you are in the group and you're only there to get love, that's a one-way street as well. And that puts a lot of pressure on the group. And at some point, they'll probably resent that in you, because you're not there giving, you're there taking. So it's important to be able, when you're in the group, to be able to give love. And that's awful hard to do when you don't love yourself. So that's why the second level that Paul talked about was belonging, that need to belong to a group, family, a relationship, your job. How many people get a huge sense of belonging from a job? Look at how they're building these businesses now. These the cultures, like it when they're back in the office, like Google or Apple or GoDaddy or any of these companies that have these community rooms and people are working all over the place, and there's just like a big family. That's the culture, and that sense of belonging is important. The third thing that Paul talks about is, again, getting to that next level, to become, to grow, to stretch, to reach, basically our God-given potential. Most of us never get there. It's a struggle. You have to want to get there. You have to want to get to that next level. That's what Robbins talked about with growth. But notice how Paul went from, he started off at the highest level, which is contribution, and he finished with the next highest level, which is growth, where that was Maslow's highest, which was self-actualization. And Paul got there third, meaning we got to grow. He knew when he wrote in the New Testament that if human beings weren't growing, then they weren't really living. We weren't here just to take. We are here to grow and give. And you can't give if you're not growing. And most people stop growing early on in their life, and they wonder why they struggle. And it's hard. Believe me, it's hard when things don't go well in your life to say, well, I've got to get better. Because we want to complain and blame, don't we? But we have to get better. We have to grow our way out of certain situations in life. We have to grow our way out of craziness that's going on right now in our life. We can sit here right now and complain and blame about COVID and moan and groan, or we can grow. We can grow, and we can grow our way out of it. That's why I've pivoted myself, and don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to change. Good grief. If you keep banging your head against the wall and it's not working, it's not working. Pivot. We've all got amazing skills if we will just sit down long enough and figure it out. We have to sit down, quit judging yourself, sit down, figure it out, make your pivot, and go. But grow and give. But if you're not growing, you can't give. If you're not loving and belonging, then you can't love others. So Paul's pretty basic. He gets right to the point, which is why I was kind of intrigued by that whole thing, and I just compared it to two other levels that I've studied, and I like it. It's pretty clean, and it gets to the point. So there you go, guys. That's why I wrote down our 3 most important human needs with the show tonight, the theme of the show. But there's other areas you can study as well with Maslow and Tony Robbins, 6 human needs, and the hierarchy levels with Maslow. And if you're into studying the New Testament, Paul writes in Romans about those 3 that we just talked about. So there you go, guys. And I appreciate everybody. I love you guys. Don't forget to follow me on different social media. Just Google me, and you can call or text me anytime, 602-390-9144. And there's my email as well. But I appreciate all you guys. I love you. It's a tough time of year, but hang in there and grow, and you're going to be okay. Talk to you later.